Hello, I'm Adam.
And I'm Adrian.
And welcome to Cast from the Crypt. Jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Guess what we're covering? Guess what? I'm so glad. Jeepers, creepers, man.
You like this one.
I don't know if I was trying to not tell you. I wouldn't want to lead you on to how I felt about this movie, but I don't know if I could contain my excitement convincingly. I love this movie. This movie's great. Did you like it? How did you feel?
I enjoyed it. Probably not as much as you do.
Oh man.
But I did enjoy the movie.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
I love this movie so much. I have seen it before. It's been a minute since I've seen it though, and I could not believe you'd never seen this movie.
I know. This one's a weird one, right? Because it's 2001, but for me, when I watched it, it just felt like something so much older and so different from the stuff that was getting made at the time.
Exactly. Why I love this movie.
Yeah, it's a really unique movie. And of course has spawned a fairly successful trilogy and reboot recently. That reboot did not do well, though.
Yeah, I never heard anything good about it. I kind of heard it was being made and then it fell off the face of my news or whatever, but...
Well, and I think we can, just get this addressed
okay.
pretty soon. I think a lot of people were excited for the reboot. Again, I've never even seen any of these movies until recently. But the reboot had no involvement from Victor Salva, who was the director of the first three. And a lot of people really enjoy these movies because they either watch them before knowing, what kind of guy Victor Salva was, or they knew but, felt guilty liking the trilogy. I know that for you, we were just chatting before this podcast or before we started this episode, and I realized that you don't know Victor Salva's history.
I hadn't known. The first time I watched this movie, I think I was in high school, and at that time, I didn't look into the movie at all. I just watched it and liked it, and that's pretty much what I was going to do this time. That's and fair. Here we are looking into the behind the scenes and its evil. Yeah, so
right. Nothing happened on the set of this movie,
Sad.
But Victor Salva, right, was involved in what I will describe as crimes against a child in the 80s, I believe, when he first started his movie career. And now, a lot of people just wonder why these movies were even made, because a lot of people in the industry knew what kind of guy he was and specifically what he has done in a directorial role before. But nonetheless, the movie got made. We're here talking about it. We're not... I'll say right off the bat, I don't think the things that make this movie great are the directing. So...
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
So I think it's plenty of other things that we could talk about in this movie.
Very sadly, on the other hand, I love this movie. So.
I know. Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, right? I've been reading a lot of reviews about this movie, in the last week, and since I've watched it, and everybody makes mention of how bad they feel for really loving this movie. I don't know. Are you of the belief that you can still, enjoy the piece?
It's more than a belief. I straight up enjoy this movie, and I can't help it. However, this is, once again, overtly an evil man. And I can't give him anything,
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that this movie is good.
I've literally read that several times.
Yeah.
And I even read a review about the reboot that was like, Jesus Christ, this is so easy to succeed in, and yet you still make people want the old director back.
Yeah, you gotta find a new director.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen the sequels. Actually, I don't think I saw the third one, but I've seen the second one. And the sequels kind of don't hold a candle to this one, so...
Oh, so
I won't give them the sequels. Yeah, they're decent. They're like a decent slasher if you're trying to watch a slasher, but they're not original at all. And that's what the charm of this movie is how original it is.
It's very, very original. I have vivid memories. I think you'll get a kick out of this. I have vivid memories of when I was a kid in 2001 and this movie came out. My sister singing the Jeepers Creepers song. And I had never seen the movie. I had never heard the song from the film. But I knew my sister's rendition. And that's all I had going into this. And I knew the lyrics, right? Where'd you get those peepers? And I assumed, and I texted you, I thought he ate eyeballs. I thought that's what he did.
It kind of does, amongst other things.
Yeah, amongst other things, as I discovered.
You'd never heard that song before outside of the context of this movie?
No. Never.
Really?
Yeah.
This is that's like a known song.
Really?
Yeah, it was known enough that they titled the movie after it and included it in the plot.
See, I figured it was a niche song that they...
No, it's a very famous song.
How famous could it be if I don't know it?
Pretty famous. It's the first time I heard this song was when I was like a little kid because they sing it in an episode of Looney Tunes. It's either Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry or something. But it's an old song, so I guess like maybe it's less known nowadays. But I've always
I don't know
about this. Okay, well, I like it. It feels like this movie is giving a backstory to that song. Like it's giving a plot to the song.
Yeah, it really is.
We find out where that Jeeper Creeper got those peepers, and that's this story. You know.
Should we get into it?
Yeah, I'd love to. So first of all, what I love about this movie is it feels like a classic horror monster movie, but it's from 2001. Like the Jeeper Creeper to me stands out with like the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. Like it's an original monster, and the movie is about showcasing this creature and learning about it and showing it off and making it all scary. And I love that. You never ever see that nowadays. That feels like it died in the 50s along with the song Jeepers Creepers. But here we are in 2001 resurrecting both that song and that type of film, and I love that. It feels so new, but it's also an homage to the start of the horror genre.
Yeah, that's true. And I felt that right down from everything to the character design all the way to the like den that he had. Especially the character design, though. The costume, everything. The fact that he drives, like he has a truck. To me, it felt different from your average slasher. It felt different from your average creature feature. It felt like an homage, but that it was adding elements. Yeah, I like the Creeper's design. I don't love the Creeper's design, though.
Okay, what's your criticisms?
I think when they show him, until the end when he sprouts wings, which we'll get there, but I think when they show him, they show his face far too much. Because when you look at his face, he looks a little dumb, in my opinion. And the weird hairline that he has, too, for me is kind of interesting. I really prefer when they start to take liberties with his form later on, and he sprouts the wings, and his face opens up. You and I both went to that wax museum in Salem where they actually have that shot of his face opening up like right in front of you, life scale, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy in person too, isn't it?
It is, and it looks great on film too. But I don't know, those are my criticisms. It's not a huge deal, but
I personally love the design. I like his crazy hairline. At the beginning of the movie, he seems to just be a man. And then throughout the movie, he loses the facade of his human attributes. And slowly you notice more of his bizarre monster features. And by the end of the movie, when his face opens up and he has these wings. He looks completely alien and he's just a monster. I love the progression of his design, or I guess the progression of revealing his design.
Wish we got a little more lore.
Well, there is more lore in the sequel.
Okay.
But it's not like anything important. This is also like every movie where they introduce a creature and then slowly you, along with the characters, learn more about it as they try to fight against it. Like, I love that setup. I think you can't fail with that. Like, unless the monster is truly uninteresting, and I think this one is very interesting. So I was sold right off the bat with this movie.
I was excited from the beginning because I immediately knew, and this is credit to the actors, I immediately knew that we were dealing with sibling characters here. And I don't think we get a lot of that. Right? I mean, we don't meet him directly, but we see his truck. We see him tailgating the two siblings menacingly. In this movie, they're named Trish and Derry. And I just found that completely fascinating, that we get not just some form of reveal in the first 15 minutes, but we also get essentially a creeper Batmobile.
I love how he begins as human as possible. I don't know. I love the creeper's idiosyncrasies. Like, he has kind of lore, kind of like, oh, this is something we discover about the creature. Like, you know an Alien. Like, it's kind of a similar setup of, like, we're learning about this creature as the film progresses. But with Alien and with monster movies, usually the monster is a monster. But This guy is sentient. He begins the movie seemingly to be a man, and then he turns more and more monstrous. But you see him, like, whistling, You see him driving a car. He has a lair. Like, he's kind of a villain just as much as he's a monster. And I like that kind of some of the things this creature does, some of its, like, attributes are more like this one guy's preference, more so than it is a thing this monster does, He doesn't have to drive a car. He doesn't have to have body art in his layer of evil, but he does, because he's evil and he likes to do those things.
Yeah, the body art shot was maybe the only time in this movie that I was like, oh, that's actually kind of spooky. I remember my sister, and we should probably elaborate. The body art, what we're referring to is in the Creeper's Den, there are all these bodies that they suggest are almost, what is it called? What do they do to bodies at before funerals?
They embalm them?
Yeah, that are embalmed. And he basically is using them as wallpaper. And you can see their stitches where he tore out their organs.
So this is kind of what I don't like about the sequels, is he doesn't drive a car. He doesn't have a lair in the sequels. And that's...
Really?
It feels like part of his personality to do that. And so in the sequels, he's kind of less of a character and more of just a monster. He's just kind of killing people. He's just kind of eating people. It's just a slasher. In this movie, you don't know why he's even killing people. You don't know what he is. At first you think he's just like an evil man, and then, oh man, he's a bizarre monster. The mystery gets deeper, I guess. And the whole mystery is, what is this thing? What does it want? So it's a pretty simple premise, but it works so well. And I really do love this creature.
Yeah, that's odd to me that they don't do more with that later on. That's actually kind of sad to hear. Though I can't say that's surprising, right? I mean, there are not many horror sequels that do right by their successful original movie. And I have heard that. I've heard this is by far the best one in the franchise.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's kind of a movie that doesn't need to be a franchise, too. It really does wrap up everything by the end of it. I enjoy these characters. The brother-sister dynamic is very solid and very believable. It's set up really well, but these aren't characters you would follow for multiple films, of course. And so, another problem with the sequels is that the characters are less believable, less enjoyable, and they're more just basic slasher cannon fodder.
Well, and I've got to say, right, part of me was disappointed from the beginning of the movie, because when we met Justin Long and we met Gina Phillips, again, Derry and Trish, respectively, I was applying my 2022 lens to this, and I thought, okay, surely there's going to be some lame ending. You know, the siblings are going to overpower the creature, and it's over. That's where this movie won me back, was at the very end. They do not do that. And I'm into that. Because I agree with you. I thought the sibling relationship was pretty clear. I thought it was pretty good. I liked these two characters. But Gina Phillips and Justin Long were nobodies in 2001. And I wasn't thinking about that, right? So when I was watching and I discovered, hey, these are nobodies. These actors are not in this movie for the long haul per se. You know, something really could happen to them. I was really pleasantly surprised with the way the movie ended.
Yeah, and we can skim the plot later, but
Right.
yeah, so part of the reason I even suggested we talk about this movie or we watch this movie is because we were talking about Barbarian and Justin Long is in it, and this is what I know Justin Long from. He's in comedies, and I think he's in like a couple other horror movies maybe, but that's not what I've seen. I've seen this movie. He's the Jeepers Creepers guy for me.
Yeah, that's. I see it now. I really liked him in this movie.
Yeah, I forget this movie is 21 years old. And Justin Long, he still looks great, you know. He aged very well. He's not that old either, you know. But
No.
he's like my age in this movie, maybe? And it was rewatching it. I just don't remember him being that young. I guess I got used to him looking older. And then to see him, like, early 20s, I was like, wow, there he is. looking young. He had some really, like, I don't know, good skin and glossy lips in this.
Yeah, I didn't verify how old he was in this movie, but I'd say he was, you know, either still in college or fresh out of, because he's very, very young. And Gina Phillips is young too, but she's God, I hope I'm not wrong when I say this, but she's notably a little older than Justin Long. That's also definitely by design, right? She's the big sister.
Yeah, well, I think that's their dynamic, because he is, well, I guess I'll set up the story a little. We begin this movie with these two in Trisha's car, and
That she never seems to know how to drive.
that she really does not seem to know how to drive throughout this movie. At the beginning of the movie, it's her car, they establish, but Derry is driving it, because I guess she doesn't like to drive.
Right.
And they're siblings on their way home for spring break, and they took the back road to get home, the scenic route, and that, I guess, in the wheel of fate is where they went wrong.
Yeah. I thought for sure this was Texas while I was watching it. But nope, it's rural Florida,
Oh, okay.
which, whatever. But it all looked very and felt very familiar to me.
That's funny, because I assumed it was like Illinois or something.
Really?
It could
Oh,
have
yeah,
been
that's funny.
anywhere. It was just like grass and fields and woods.
It's like nondescript country area. But it does feel very, very empty, right? Very...
Sparsely populated.
Yeah, right? Great horror movie setting. To me, it felt kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, I knew what they were setting it up for. I, again, though, was shocked at just how quickly they introduce the creeper.
Yeah, and I'm so glad they did. So another great way that they set up the sort of sibling relationship is these characters are playing like dumb card games the entire time. And they have this game where they have to guess what a license plate says, because, you know, like sometimes vanity plates have like a dumb little phrase on it. And they
Right.
are trying to read those. Suddenly, the Dick Dastardly Creeper Mobile pulls up behind their car, starts honking at him, trying to run him off the road. It's just being really aggressive and scary. And then after a very tense car scene of them trying to not get run off the road by this guy, he just drives away. And they see his license plate is what they think is maybe beating you. It's BEATNGU, I believe. And so they think it's beating you at first. But they find out later it's be eating you. which, whatever. But I love the Creeper Mobile. It's this massive truck. It's got a, 18-wheeler horn on it. It's about that size, but it has a big, two huge doors in the back that, could hold a lot of cargo, and we learn later maybe hold a lot of people. It's got that fun vanity plate. It really is a wacky races monster mobile.
Oh, yeah. I just want to know if the Creeper had to go and get approval from the DMV for this license plate.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, where did he get this vanity plate?
But no, I love the design of the car. At first I thought it was really goofy, and then when the movie started to progress and I felt the vibe, I was like, nah, I'm cool with it. I like the way this movie feels.
Yeah, it's pulpy horror. These original monster movies are the pinnacle of early pulp. And here we have that, but we also have that sort of edginess that comes with 2001, the early 2000s, just after the late 90s. Right. And that's why you get goofy stuff like this car in the same movie, that there's a over-the-top, exaggerated wall of bodies in his lair. This movie exists in that perfect sweet spot. It also exists in that sweet spot of it's 2001, so they can still use the my phone is out of battery excuse as to why they can't call for help immediately. It really is this all the stars aligned in time. This movie could have only been made when it came out. Yet at the same time, like the rest of these classic horror movie monster movies, it's a timeless classic also, personally, I think.
I understand why, to be honest. I mean, I think that it's I just think it's a very, very solid movie for the time. I think the effects are pretty good, all things considered, and to be honest, pretty different from the other things that were happening, the other movies that were being made in the 2000s. Namely in 2001. In 2001, the movies that came out, I could name a couple, right? Well, first of all, of course, Scary Movie 2, the Scary Movie series was in full, was in full stride. 13 Ghosts came out. That's a pretty mediocre movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Bones. That stars Snoop Dogg.
I wish I have.
I don't know if you do.
It's probably not good, is it?
No, not at all. And I think those are the two that come to mind for me. But this was not a great era for horror movies. So I just don't find it surprising that this stuck out.
Yeah, and in a world where the machine's cranking out bad horror movies, it feels like this movie went back to the genre's roots. And I love that. And then, so of course it worked. It was, well, I need to stop just saying this movie's great, and we can skim the plot a little. Like I said, it's a pretty simple plot.
It is,
so
yeah.
We don't need to go crazy into it.
Not very difficult to follow. So as we said, we're following two siblings, Trish and Derry, on their way home from a nondescript college in a nondescript town. They're headed home for spring break. They are tailgated and passed aggressively by the Creeper Mobile, which is what I'm going to call it. And later on the road, while they are, picking on each other and playing games, trying to pass the time, they see the same vehicle that passed them very aggressively at the beginning of the movie, parked at an abandoned church, and they see what they believe is that creature, though at this point they think it's a person, carrying bodies wrapped in blood-stained cloths, I suppose. And our hero, Derry, thinks it's best to turn around and see if they can help the people that are there.
Yeah, and immediately the creeper sees them, gets back in his car, and we have a second dramatic chase on the road. The car's driven off the road, and the creeper just keeps driving, and they return to that horrible house. The creeper himself, we learn later, refers to it as the House of Pain, which is a great name. It's a abandoned, moldering church, and in the basement, he has stitched the bodies of every one of his victims into the walls, and so it's just like I keep saying body wall art, and that's pretty much what it is. And he's taxidermized all these people in some form or fashion. They established that like in the 70s or 80s, one girl went missing, and they could never find her severed head, and like it was this huge horror story that everybody knows about. And while he's in there, he finds that girl's body, and he recognizes it because of her class ring, I believe. And so right off the bat, it's like this urban legend, this urban horror story that he discovers is gruesomely true, and worse than he thought. There's a monster behind it. And now he has to live in that nightmare. And great setup, once again. So they leave the house, they manage to get back in her crappy little car. Her car is it's a nice car, but it's like from the 50s. So it looks nice, and it's cool that it's kept up, but also it's a car from the 50s, so it's not gonna be the fastest horse in the stable. You know? So it's
again, she can never drive the thing.
Yeah, there's a few scenes where she's like, I can't get it to start, I don't know. It's like it's a stick shift and she doesn't know how to drive stick, but it's also her car.
And I had to make sure, too, midway through the movie that it was her car, because I was like, why can't she start this car? And I had to double check. That is, in fact, her car. There's no reason she shouldn't know how to drive it. She's just, like, destroying her transmission every other scene. Anyway. That didn't bother me. It was fine. But I did find it pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, to me, too, it's like the stakes in the situation became so serious so quickly that maybe they quit caring about the car. The car got bunged up right off the beginning because the creeper mobile kept ramming into it. So it's junked up, but I guess continuing, they leave that church, the House of Pain, in a horrified panic, trying to drive to the nearest place they can stop and find a phone. So they stop in this diner where they get a phone call from a mysterious benefactor. Some woman just says, "Is this Darian Trish? Hey, you gotta run away from..." Anytime you hear the song Jeepers Creepers, run away. I don't know what that thing is. She says it's either a devil or a demon or something out of time. And I thought that's, fun and mysterious. I don't know what the difference between
vague.
A devil and a demon is, but, maybe she knows.
That part made no sense to me. The whole psychic character I thought was such a silly inclusion. I told you before, but I'm pretty sure she plays Miss Dabney in... What's that show called? Good Luck, Charlie?
Oh, yeah. It's if you saw her, she's in a million things, this actress.
That's true, yeah.
Anyway, her name is Patricia Belcher. She's in a lot of TV work, mostly, but I've seen her in quite a few movies, too. She's like a character actress. If you saw her, you'd recognize her. Honestly, for me, I recognize her voice at this point just as much as I recognize her face.
Actually, me too.
I didn't mind the psychic character plot. It was like a fun way to learn about the creature. And I know it's kind of like, you never want someone to just give you answers. You never want a character to just tell you exposition. But with a monster movie like this, there's always a character that has to know something more than others, more than they're letting on. And I thought that this was the best way to maybe incorporate that into the story, is just have the psychic. It also adds another element of the supernatural to the creeper. Because while the creeper seems to be a very physical monster, it literally is a monster, it also has kind of some supernatural elements to it. Once again, like, it's an attribute of the creature, but it also feels like a part of its personality. Like, it has some weird connection to the song Jeepers Creepers. He whistles it at one point, and whenever he attacks, there's many scenes where he's about to attack, and suddenly the radio will start playing the song Jeepers Creepers, or some variant of it. And so it's fun. I love, these supernatural elements. Like, it doesn't really do anything except make the creatures scarier and creepier and more mysterious.
There's the one scene where they are driving on the road, being escorted by the police, and the police are, of course, attacked by the creeper. And they hear it on the radio, and it's like a pop version of the same song, like a modern pop version of the 1938 song. And I thought that was really weird, and they never quite explained that, but he's something out of time, as they say, so I just kind of accepted it.
Yeah, so the rest of the movie is these characters running away from the creature. The psychic character gives more information about it, and we learn that this creature is seemingly immortal. Every 23 years, it awakens from a hibernation to feed for 23 days. And anytime it gets a body part damaged or withers away or something, it can replace that body part by eating the body part of a human. So if it gets stabbed in the heart, it can eat a human's heart and regrow its own heart. So this is, and the way it knows if you have a body part that it particularly wants is if it scares you, it can smell your fear and smell if you have the right body part for it. And so that's why he drives around in this creeper mobile scaring people on the highway, is he wants to know if someone is marked, basically. And Patricia Belcher, the psychic character, has had a vision of these siblings fleeing from the creeper and one of them getting taken by it. And so she's trying to help them change their fate, basically.
This part, the psychic plot, and just this whole section of the movie, I was having trouble with. It wasn't that I was expecting this movie to have some, plot rooted in realism or anything like that. I don't really enjoy psychic plots, and B, I'm not entirely, I don't know, the whole destiny thing in this Jeepers Creepers movie where we have a guy that drives around in a truck to look for body parts he needs. I don't know. For me, it detracted, and that's where it lost some points from me. Eventually, though, they do kind of go beyond this, and I appreciated it. But essentially all the stuff with Miss Hartman, Patricia Belcher's character, I was not really buying into. I was having a hard time with it. I know that you said it didn't bother you, but I don't know. I do also love the song, though. I have to agree with you. I don't know what his attachment is to it. And do we ever learn that? I know that you've seen some of the sequels.
No, we don't. And for as much as we
Cool.
do learn about this character, I do love that there's so much we don't know. It really is mysterious. And, Dracula might have been the first of the modern interpretation of a vampire, but it was based on vampires throughout time, The Wolfman has, been based on werewolf myths forever, but this creature is truly, to us as an audience, completely unknown. The only way we can learn about it is through these characters, and the fact that there's so much we don't know makes it so much more mysterious. This is what I like about the psychic character. I think, why is she having visions about this one monster? It adds to the mysticism of the creature that's seemingly not it doesn't necessarily have to be a supernatural creature, but they give it that supernatural aspect, I guess, through these little things.
I read something about the production where the choice for the producers, the choice to kind of string the audience along and not reveal from the very beginning just how monstrous the creeper was. And what I mean by that is like when he later on transforms, sprouts wings, etc. That wasn't a popular choice in the, what should we call it, production house. But I like it because despite the fact that this is a creature feature, and despite the fact that I essentially knew he wasn't human the majority of the film, it was nice to learn something new about the way this thing functioned. in essentially every scene. And to continue asking myself, what is this thing? How's it work? Is it human? Is it more human than not? Is it more creature than not? Yeah, I gotta throw this out there. Jonathan Breck plays the Creeper, and I had to look this guy up because I wasn't aware of any of the other things that he's worked on. But he has played the Creeper in the first 3 movies, and he is not in the reboot. That's probably because I imagine he's getting a little older. He is a Houston-based actor, which I thought was pretty cool. But big time credit to him. I've just got an affinity for anybody that can withstand several hours of makeup and make such an inhuman creature. And this goes for all those lovely character actors that have portrayed all of our favorite villains. It's quite a labor. Like, that's not an easy thing to do, to translate that for the screen and to make it somehow believable and also fantastical. But Jonathan Breck nails it. Maybe one day if they reboot it again, he can come back into the role a la Halloween. But I really liked his work in this movie. That's my favorite part of this movie, probably, is the Creeper in general.
Yeah, but that's the main attraction. That's the movie, and
yeah,
you like most of the movie. Then is what that means.
I like it, but I don't like the sidekick.
Well, it's fine. I mean, I understand. To each his own.
Yeah.
Also, I don't mind when they have plot elements like that. Once again, because it is such a simple plot. It's not plot heavy. This movie. It's a creature feature. Feature that creature. That's what I'm here for. That's what everybody's here for.
Yeah.
The creature also, while in its most human-looking form, while it's still wearing clothes, and the psychic says that it wears clothes only to make it look like a man, but it's not a man. And he wears this great, disgusting, grungy black trench coat with a wide-brimmed hat. It's kind of a very iconic costume, I think. And that's before
cool.
we understand the creature inside of that costume. But while he's still wearing those clothes, there's a scene in the movie where he whistles the Jeepers Creepers tune. He never speaks. We never hear him speak or give a line of dialogue. We hear him gurgle. We hear him screech. We hear him make all these inhuman noises. But this whistle that he does in this one scene establishes pretty early on that he's completely with it, completely sentient. Just as much, if not more, than a person. But he is so physically monstrous that we'll never hear him talk. He's kind of like Freddy Krueger, if Freddy Krueger couldn't speak, if that makes any sense. He really has a personality of a smarmy, smug, snickering villain, despite the fact that he's completely a monster and never speaks.
I found myself really wanting him to. That's fascinating. Does he never speak in the rest of the entries that you've seen?
I don't believe he does, but maybe he does at some point. I'm not sure. I don't think he does, though. And I
like that.
I do too. It really works because he, once again, props to what's the name of the guy that plays him?
Jonathan Breck.
Jonathan Breck. Props to Jonathan Breck because he really gives the Creeper personality when this character has no dialogue.
Yeah.
He's an inhuman monster.
No, I completely agree. Do you want to, briefly get into the wrap up or, the climax, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. So as these characters continue down this highway trying to escape the Creeper slowly builds up a body count, and the movie ends with these characters stopping in a police station after running the Creeper over with their car. So they think the Creeper's dead. They ran it over multiple times, too. And now they're in this police station. Suddenly, all the lights go out. And Giselle, who's the psychic, who we've only met on the phone before this scene, shows up in person to explain in better detail that she's a psychic, that she sees one of them get taken by the creature, what the creature is, yada, yada, yada. And the lights in the police station go out, and here we have, like the final attack from the creature. And there's no better way to raise the stakes or show off like how much of a force your monster is than by having that monster completely decimate a police department.
Yeah, like the entire town's police department.
Yeah, and what a great scene. What a great sequence, I should say, of the creeper going around this dark jail and killing off all the cops. It's so creepy.
And he plays with his food, too, because he cuts off the power.
Yeah, oh yeah, and once again, that personality comes out. Like, he finds enjoyment in what he's doing. He's not just doing it for food or for regenerative reasons.
Right. He cuts the power, he eats the prisoners, and that's actually what starts that sequence. Because, it's a county jail, I assume. And he makes quick work of the police department. And that's when Giselle informs both Trish and Derry, because they're in the police station, trapped. She informs them that one of them is going to die in a very, very tragic way.
Or at least that's what she saw in her vision. And that's why she came there, is to see if she could maybe change fate and get them to survive this monster.
So much for that.
Yeah. And this is something that's interesting about this movie, is at the very end of this scene, the creature flies off with Derry. And we are to guess that he got. Like, fate could not be changed. The premonition was fulfilled, and one of our main characters was slain by the monster. There is no final survivor. I mean, I guess there's the sister, but the creeper, we find out, was never really after her.
Right.
Did you expect that ending?
No, not at all. Especially, and we should discuss the specific image at the very end of the movie.
Of course.
We go into the oil refinery, and what do we get? What is he listening to as we zoom in slowly? We just get this shot of him in his iconic garb, like at some sort of workbench, and we get to hear the original 1938 Jeepers Creepers song playing on a record player. So he definitely has access to records and knows how to spin a record.
Not only a record, but like a gramophone.
Yeah, like very old school.
And so we find out that yes, he got Derry. He needed him for one of his body parts, and of course, Adrian, what body part is it?
His peepers.
Of course. And so the end of the movie, we find out how the Jeepers Creepers got those peepers.
Isn't that clever?
And I love that. Yeah, it ties the song and the title of the film all back up into like, oh. it feels almost like a gag, like this lighthearted 30s song that's kind of just like a earworm tune you hum to yourself was kind of the plot of this horror movie. They somehow exaggerated it and turned it into this whole story. And I love that.
Yeah, and like most likely like a romantic song about some guy ogling over a girl's eyes. It's creative. I gotta give them that. It's creative. And I mean, I like the ending. I think it's honestly kind of hilarious. I didn't expect Justin Long to just die.
Yeah, and that shot too, we find Justin Long's body standing still as a taxidermized sort of mannequin, like all the other bodies he discovered. And there are 2 holes where his eyes have been. But not only that, they're like through his head, like as if they hollowed out his head. And you can look through his head, through his eye holes that have been formed. And the creeper walks up behind it and looks through one of the eye holes, and you see it's a green eye, and you assume the creeper has gotten new eyes from Derry.
Yep.
And that's the final shot. And what a great shot. What a fun ending. And most of the posters for this movie is like some gross leathery, what I assume is skin stitched together, and a hole in that skin has the creeper's eye looking through it. And if you were to just pass that poster in, a Blockbuster or whatever in 2001, you would just think, oh, that's, it's an intriguing image, sure, but you don't understand the significance of it until you have seen the entire movie. And you realize this is kind of in reference to the final shot of the movie.
Yeah, and it's a vague reference, but you're right, it's certainly there. It's so funny, because growing up, again, my sister really enjoyed this movie, and I would see it on the rack at Blockbuster all the time. Mind you, I would avoid the horror movie rack as a kid because a lot of the images scared me, but I remember the cover of this film fairly vividly. And I remember my sister whistling the tune of the song. So just to watch it now and kind of take it in is interesting. But I had fun with it. I thought it was really good. I will say it's a shame because the creator and who he is really kind of took away from it for me. And though I try to separate art from some of the people that are involved, it can be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you try. I mean, it's really hard to not think about that. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But I do understand why people like this movie. Yeah, I would say just don't pay for it.
Yeah, it's on Pluto TV is where I watched it. So that's kind of, for me, like, if it's not on Tubi, that's kind of the secondary that I go to. It's not as good as so Tubi, funny. Of course, but you can find some stuff on there. I watched Barbarella the other day on there.
Yeah, I'm discovering a whole new world of these, like, B-movie apps.
Yeah, it's fun. Jeepers Creepers is a fun movie. It's pretty easy to watch, and I love a creature feature. I love a well-done creature feature, and here we are.
Yeah, it's a good one.
In comparison to the sequels, like, I'd even recommend the sequels, just, like, if you need a slasher to watch. Sometimes, you want to watch a slasher, you don't even care if it's good. Why not watch this creature that you've kind of come to enjoy?
That's fair. Yeah. This kind of movie isn't made a lot anymore. And honestly wasn't being made a lot back then. So, yeah, I'm just glad to see stuff like this around, to be honest. And I understand why it's got such a following. And why it was so successful in the box office, too.
Yeah, I remember this movie. I was too young, really, when it came out to remember it. But I remember seeing it around forever when I was a kid. And I loved it when I finally got around to watching it. So I love this movie. I'm glad I got to watch it again. I'm glad I had a reason to watch it again. Thank you, Justin Long, for reminding me to watch this movie. And thank you for joining me, Adrian.
Thank you, buddy.
Okay. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.